Hey, welcome back PetaPixel viewers, it is Niccolls here, and look what I've got to show you. The brand new Hasselblad XCD E-Series 20-35. This is an f3.2 to 4.5 lens. We're gonna take it on a little road trip as we head north out of Calgary. So what's interesting about this lens is that Hasselblad doesn't make a lot of zooms and certainly nothing that covers their wide angle range. Now this is gonna give us a full frame equivalent of roughly like a 16 to 28, f2.5 to 3.5 equivalent depth of field on a full frame camera. So this very much becomes your general purpose professional wide angle zoom. I do also want to point out, we'd love to trudge through the mountains and the hills and go for a hike, but unfortunately Jordan sadly is still injured. His foot is still not 100%, so we're just gonna be sticking to the roads here today, but I think we'll have a fun time playing with this lens. Now this is actually the first series that Hasselblad's made that has the E designation. E stands for exclusive, and that means it has an incredibly exclusive price point, but let's see if it also backs it up with excellent image quality. Let's go to handling first. So when I first heard about this 20-35 and being fairly fast, I figured it's gonna be a really big lens. I'm gonna need something special to really handle the girth of it. But it turns out it actually isn't really that big. Story of my life. So this lens isn't very heavy to carry around at all. It's less than half a noct, 805 grams here. And dimensions wise, it's really not that big either. 77mm filter thread, that's very manageable. I've got a small shallow hood on here, and if I was gonna make any complaints about Hasselblad lenses, it's the hoods. I don't like the hoods. They're very soft, light metal, absolutely, but they're easy to bend, and more importantly, they're a little fiddly to actually line up and get on and lock in place. Sometimes they go over and scratch the metal. Anyways, I don't like them. Now, like any other Hasselblad XCD lens, these are premium lenses. They are built to a beautiful standard. I love the Hasselblad badger on the side, nice manual focus ring, nice turning zoom ring. I always like the H pattern on their rings. That's very nice, but considering how expensive this lens is, I don't know why we're not getting a lot of other features. There's no switches. For example, no manual focus clutch. That'd be really nice to have here, and no aperture ring whatsoever, right? And that would be kind of a nice feature too, although I get that it is a floating aperture, and that's probably why they left it out.
Okay, Chris is going ahead on the path of Big Hill Springs to take some photos, and I can't follow him because I'm dealing with this catastrophe right now. So hopefully he's making some great art up there.
All right, let's talk about bokeh on this lens next. Now, first, we always like to talk about specular highlights. And again, given that this is an ultra wide angle lens, they're always gonna be fairly small in the background, but at the same time, large size sensor and the relatively bright aperture on this lens, you can get shallow depth of field shots. You can see your specular highlights are very beautiful. Wide open. I don't even see a cat's eye effect, just nice round specular highlights, no onion rings, don't even have a strong soap bubble effect. We close the lens down, that aperture stays nice and round. Again, no, not getting sort of polygonal shapes here, beautiful specular highlights. What this really translates though into is soft backgrounds and really beautiful smooth transitions from in focus to out of focus areas. This might not be a lens that gives you, huge bokeh balls, but you can absolutely get nice soft backgrounds, and this renders them beautifully. All right, guys, so I want to talk about a couple things here on this lens, which I guess you should know about, but really aren't that big a deal here. So first off, autofocusing motor. This is using a stepping motor, an STM, and that makes sense. These lenses aren't really designed to focus super fast. Hasselblads honestly don't focus that quick either. It's silent, it's quick, it's smooth enough, but it's not terribly quick, okay? As well, I want to talk about the close-up capabilities on this lens. Again, they're not really anything to write home about, maybe enough to make a YouTube video about. The close-up capability here, I'm getting 0.32 meters for my subject, which is about here. That's not bad. We're getting some nice working distance. You can see the difference between shooting at 20 mil, where we're not getting as much magnification, and then 35mm, where it's doing its best. And I'm still getting my whole frame kind of filling up this section of log. So for the occasional detail shot in the woods, it's great, but it's not really going to be ideal for flowers or small details unless you're willing to crop quite heavily. So we're getting these really sunny summer days here in Alberta, great for flare tests. Wandered downtown, took some shots here, and you know, Hasselblad's coatings do a really good job of resisting flare. I mean, any loss of contrast is very minor, even when shooting right towards bright light sources. But also sunstars are pretty decent. I mean, if you want to do cityscapes or like nighttime shots or, you know, get those sunstar effects, they're not the best sunstars I've seen, but you can see there's some definition. They're fairly dramatic. They're fairly clean looking. So this is a nice lens for shooting on bright sunny days, shooting towards bright light sources, or trying to get those sunstars when stopped down. So of course we know the Hasselblad primes are always very sharp. They have no problem supporting the 100 megapixel resolution on these big sensors. But what about a zoom lens like this? Are we giving up anything in terms of sharpness? Well, let's take a look here at our charts at 20 millimeters shooting wide open at f3.2. You can see actually very good detail. I mean, the contrast is still good. We're getting very good detail. When I stop the lens down, I can see just a little hint of extra detail. Just gets a little bit sharper. So ideally you might want to shoot a little bit stop down if trying to maximize resolution, but I'd still shoot this wide open all the time. Okay, now let's look at the corners at 20 millimeters. Again, can it handle that 100 megapixels of resolution? Well, the corners here aren't bad, but we are seeing a little bit of softness in the extreme shooting wide open. When I stop down, things get a lot better. We're not dealing with a lot of vignetting or anything, but definitely we get more detail stopping the lens down. Now let's take a look at the 35 millimeter range. Very similar story here. Tons of detail, you know, wide open, a little bit better when I stop down in the centers, just a hair sharper, and the corners, again, similar story. They are pretty good wide open, but they improve when you stop down the lens. So if I was shooting a landscape situation, or if I could afford the stopping down of the aperture, I would do, but honestly, shooting wide open, you're still gonna get tons of detail. Okay, so our road trip is finished. We have made it. We've had a fun time. I mean, this has been a very convenient and versatile ultra-wide zoom to play with. And I think we take for granted that this zoom range is incredibly common on pretty much every other mirrorless system. I mean, Hasselblad had zooms for their older Hasselblad series, but as far as the X2D goes, this is the first one that we've had with this wide angle coverage. And you know what? It is fantastic optically. I mean, this is their exclusive series. I think they've done a great job. It's sharp. It's well controlled for flare. Nice bokeh characteristics. I mean, there's nothing really to complain about optically on this lens, but man, do you pay an exorbitant price to get it. I know that's the nature of Hasselblad lenses, but to have a versatile zoom like this is really going to hurt the wallet. At the same time, let's say that you do have a Hasselblad system and you haven't invested in a bunch of wide angle primes for it yet. Well, then this does actually cover quite a range of primes, and if you figure it that way, the cost isn't that bad. At the same time as well, we're not really suffering any optical compromises with the zoom. It's fantastic optically, so you really could feasibly cover a bunch of prime lenses and still enjoy the images that you get from this. And although we didn't do any flash photography with this lens, keep in mind that Hasselblads do give you that leaf shutter, those fast flash sync speeds, as well just for landscape photography, doing things like slow shutter speed, waterfalls and stuff like I did. I love the fact that the shutter mechanism here has basically no shake, no slap, and so it really does give me a very stable platform to shoot from. So let us know what you think in the comments below. Get a bunch of prime lenses or just get this zoom and cover them all in one go. You let us know what you think. Let us know anything else that you have, any suggestions or comments you want to make. We always appreciate those. Do listen to the PetaPixel podcast. You'll find out on this exact same YouTube channel or all your favorite podcasting apps. So if you're doing a road trip through the countryside of Alberta, you can listen to us talk about photography the whole time. You'll love it. Also go to the merch store. We're revising a whole bunch of t-shirts. You'll definitely want to keep pace on that. Go to store.petapixel.com and you'll see all of the new stuff we're going to come out with. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.